Hey, good afternoon, math peeps. Today is the beginning of Module 4. Congratulations on finishing Module 3. I know some of that was a little bit difficult, but it was a review, right, of volume. Today, what we're going to do is start Session 1 of Module 4. In this module, we only have 3 lessons before we take our final exam for Unit 6, which is going to encompass everything from geometry to area to multiplying mixed numbers and volume. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's take a look at what we have on plan for today. So for our plan today, we're going to start off with a problem string, right? We're going to work on doubling and halving and see how that works with multiplying mixed numbers and whole numbers. We're also going to do an investigation where we're going to look at areas of flag. You're going to need student book page 246 and 247 for that activity, please. When we're all done, feel free to go and work on any of the workplace games or go back and check some of your previous answers. And then you also have page 248 in your student book to finish for tomorrow's lesson or the next day's session, depending on where you're at. All right, but before we start, let's go ahead and take a look at our homework or the things that we did for last session. This, I believe, is page 245 in our student book. Pause the video, look at your answers, compare, and make changes. If you notice that there's a big discrepancy between your answers and the answers that are up on the screen, please contact your teacher as soon as possible so that we can fix those answers and see where kind of mistakes were made and where we can make our where we can kind of fix what we need to fix. All right. The next part is your home connections books, which I believe is 127 and 128. Go ahead and pause the video. And again, contact your teacher if your answers are extremely different than what we have on the screen. So I'm going to need you to get your math books out or your math notebooks out, a piece of paper. If you have your math student book in the back, there's those extra pieces of paper that allow us to write our problem strings down. And this one's doubling and halving with mixed numbers. All right. And what I want you to do is set up an array or a rectangle, just like what we have here. We are going to be multiplying 2.5 times 18. And we're setting this problem up very similarly to how we would set up multiplying whole numbers or mixed numbers. And we're going to use the same principles with that. And what I mean by that is we're going to take that 2.5 and we're going to break it up into 2, and then we're going to break it up into a half. And then we're going to figure out how big the array is when we multiply 2 by the width of our array and we multiply a half by the width of our array. All right. 2 times 18 was 36. So if I were to draw my lines in here and draw two, make sure that I had two parts and I had 18 lines going straight down, I would prove that I had 36 blocks within this array. Now we have 1/2 times 18. So that would mean that if I took half of a line, not a whole line, but a half of a line, and then figure that we'd have 18 halves or 9 wholes, correct? And for me to figure out how many or how large this array would be, all I would have to do is take the amount in this array and add it to the amount in this array, and I would get my total answer. So 2.5 times 18 is 45. So we're going to move on down. We're going to begin our work here. Okay, so it says, what is the area of a banner that is 1.25 feet wide by 36? Now, I'd like you to draw your square or your rectangle very similarly to what I have here on the screen, right? And we are putting our width of our rectangle up on the board or up on top here. And our width is 36, right? With our length being 1 and then 1/4 is how we're dividing up our numbers, right? I'm multiplying this array here. I'm actually multiplying 1 times 36, And this array, I'm multiplying 1/4 times 36, correct? And what to find what my total would be when I finish, as I would first multiply 1 times 36. That would give me 36 square feet, correct? Because we want to use that as our label. And then 1/4 times 36. And that's a little bit more difficult, but that's just dividing 36 by 4. And we get 9 square feet. And that equals, so in order to figure out what our total array is, we would have to add what we found on the top array to what we found on the bottom array. So that would be 36 plus 9 equals 45. 45 square feet, which is very similar to what we had over here. So we're going to kind of look at that in a little bit, but I want you to keep that in mind. So now we have a different array, right? The next array we have, it's 9 feet wide and 5 feet wide and 9 feet long. That one's a pretty easy array for us to figure out. 5 times 9. So that would equal what? 45 feet squared, or square feet. All right, and lastly, it says Caleb got another banner order of 4.5 feet by 10 feet. That one's a little bit more difficult, but let's go ahead and take a look at that one. We're going to move this down over here, and we're going to change that to 10. And I'll move my line down here because I'm going to divide up my decimal very similarly to how I divided my fraction. So I have 4 up here, and I have 0.5 on the bottom, or 1/2, right? And then I'm going to multiply 4 times the 10 because that's my width, and that's going to equal 40 square feet, correct? And now I'm going to take my 1/2 times 10. So what is 0.5 times 10, or what is half of 10? Remember, when we're multiplying by a decimal, we just move our decimal point over one spot when we're multiplying by 10, right? We move it to the right when we multiply, we move it to the left when we divide. So half of 10, or 0.5 times 10, is 5 square feet, which then again, we like adding the above array to the bottom array, which we have to do here. We get a final total of 40 plus 5 equals 45 square feet. Cool, huh? All right, so let's take a look at those answers. So these are the problems that we came up with. What I want you to pay closely or a little closer attention to is my 2.5 times 18 equals 45 square feet, and then 1.25 times 36 equals 45 square feet. Do you notice anything about those two? Right? So if I take a look, here are my two arrays. This is the way they would be drawn out. I have this array, which is 18 long. I have this array, which is 36 long. What do you notice about these two arrays and the lengths? Right? We doubled them. And remember when we solved longer multiplication problems, our multi-digit multiplication problems with like 2-digit times 2-digit, we were able to have and double. Well, we would have to, if we halved one side, we had to double the other side, or if we doubled one side, we had to halve the other side. So then I want you to take a look at this. Are these half? Because we doubled this, we doubled our length. Are we halving our width? Yes, because half of 2 is 1, and half of 12 is 1/4. So it just makes sense that we have the same answer here. Okay, same thing can happen if we're going in groups of 10. Whatever you multiply or whatever you're dividing by, you'll get the same answer as long as you multiply or divide that same number by the other number. For instance, if I have the 1 times 45 equals 45, and then I'm going to multiply this by 10 to get 10, then I have to divide this by 10, and I got 4.5. My answer is going to be the same. So it's just a different way for us to think and make things easier for us. All right, so our next one. Our next group is 3 1/3 by 27. All right, so we're going to take 3 because it's 3 feet wide here, and a third wide here. And we're going to change this digit to 27. Oops. There we go. So this just means for this array, we have to multiply 3 times 27. And then we have to multiply this array by 27. Because we're not changing the width at all. We're just changing we're not changing the length at all. We're changing the width. So what is 3 times 27? Go ahead and pause the video and figure that out. Good. I'm sure you came up with 81 feet or 81 square feet, right? And as I figure out 1/3 times 27, just like in our 1/4 of 36, we're just dividing 36 by 4. We're going to divide 27 by 3, and we're going to get 9 square feet. Now, if I have to figure out that entire array, I'm going to multiply, or I'm going to add 81 plus 9, and I'm going to get 90 square feet. Did you get that for an answer? I hope so. All right, so now the next one, 10 times 9. So what I want to do is I want to think a little bit about what we did up here, right? We doubled this answer, or we doubled this side, so we had to half this side. We went 10 times this side, so we had to go 1/10 this side. Okay, so how does that look in this one? Well, look at 27. Look at 27 and look at the 9. What are we doing to the 27 to get 9? We are dividing by 3. So it would make sense that if these two are the same area, that we would multiply the next number by 3 to get that number. So, well, let's take a look. What is 3 times 3? 3 times 3 is 9. That's easy enough. And then what happens when we multiply 1/3 times 3? So when we have 3 1/3s, I have 1/3, and then 2/3, and then 3/3, which is 1 whole. So 1 plus 9 is 10. So this would be the same answer. So 10 times 9 equals 90 square feet. All right, now on this last one usually on our number corners is just a tricky one. Same sort of pattern that we've used before, but we're not able to use any previous questions and answers to help us out. So we have 3, and we're multiplying that by 12 because our new length of our banner is 12 feet. And I'm taking 1/2 times 12. Now I have to figure out what each one of these arrays are, right? 3 times 12 is what? 36 square feet, right? And then my next problem is 1/2 times 12, which is 6 square feet. You came up with that answer? All right, so then what do we do next? We have to, like this problem, add our two arrays together. 36 plus 6, that's going to equal 42 square feet. All right, that's the end of our problem string. Now I need you to open up your books, which to page 246 and 247. But before we begin that, I want you to take a look at Caleb's flags. Now, Caleb, unlike Mark and Brad, who were dealing with volume of boxes, Caleb is going to design flags or banners, and he needs to figure out the area of these because we only have one layer. We're not building layers on top of each other. So just one layer, and we're trying to figure out how many square feet these banners are going to be. So he's planning to make a flag that is 1 1/4 feet by 2.5 feet long. How are we going to figure out how many square feet is going to take to make the cloth, or how much cloth is going to take? So I need to, I thought I had a text box in here. I'm going to need to put a text box in here. Excuse me. I'm going to need to put a text box in here so I can write my answer, right? So how can I use, or what area, or which math problem can I use to solve how big or how many square feet of cloth this banner is going to take? I need to take the width which is 1 and a fourth, and then multiply that by the length, which is 2 and a half, right? And that's going to give me the area of the flag, right? You don't have to figure that out now. We're going to be doing that later. But which estimate? It's always good for us to kind of figure out an estimate, because an estimate's going to let us know whether or not we're in the ballpark, right? Whether or not we're going to be close to our answer or away. Which one of those three answer choices would be the most appropriate for this problem? Is it 1 square foot, 2 square feet, or 3 square feet? Did you put it in 3 square feet? I hope you did. And the only reason why I said I hope so is because, we know 1 times 2 is 2, right? But we know also that we have to multiply 1/4 times 1/2. Now, 2 would be an okay guess for us, but we do know that it's 2 and a little bit more. So the most appropriate answer for this problem is going to be 3 square feet. All right. So like when we multiply our answers here, or when we multiply mixed number, or not mixed numbers, when we multiply 2 by 2 digits, right? We would normally see like 20 and then 5 and then 1 and 5 here. And then we would do our multiplication in our 4 boxes, add them all together, and come up with an answer. But we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to figure out the same thing here. So we're going to multiply first 2 by 1. So what's 2 times 1? And that's going to give us a square foot for this flag. Now we want to figure out the square foot for the entire flag. So we only figured out what the square foot is, or how many square feet it is for this flag right here. All right. Then for our next part of the flag, we are going to use still the same width, which is 1, and we're going to multiply that by 1/2. And that'll give us the square feet of this part of the flag, right? And now we're going to get down to the bottom. We now have 1/4 as our width, and we have 2 feet as our length. So we're going to use 1/4 times 2, and that's going to give us the square feet needed for this part of our flag. And then lastly, we need to figure out what the square footage is for this last half. So we have 1/4 times 1/2. All right, so now let's go ahead and pause the video and answer all of these questions for me. And then push play when you have an answer. Great, welcome back. Okay, so we have 2 times 1. 2 times 1 is 2. So we'll answer this correctly, 2 square feet, right? For this problem, we are multiplying 1 by 1/2. So what is 1/2 of 1? This is 1/2 square feet, correct? Now, what is 1/4 of 2? Now, when I'm multiplying, right, I have to think in my mind, what is 2 over 1 when I'm multiplying a fraction, right, by a whole number. And I multiply my numerators, which is 2 times 1, which is 2. And then our denominators together, 4 times 1, which is 4. So equals 2/4 or 1/2. And square feet for that portion of the flag. And then for our last portion of the flag, 1/4 times 1/2, or 1/2 of a fourth, which equals 1/8 square feet. Now, in order for me to get an answer, I have to add up each one of my boxes to give me the total, right? So what is 2 plus 1/2, which is 2.5, which gives me the square feet of this part. And then I multiply the bottom, or I add the bottom part. So 2.5 plus 1/2 is 3, plus 1/8 is 3 1/8. Awesome. Okay, now it's time for you to just try this on your own. Let's look at page 246 and 247. You're doing the same thing. Okay, you're dealing with different flags with different measurements. Go ahead and answer 1A, B, C, 2A, B, and C, and then do the attempt to do the challenge problem, please. I know a lot of my students choose not to do it and just cross it off, but please do the challenge problem and see what you can do. Okay, pause the video and start us back up when you are all done. All right, so here are the answers to your 246 and 247. Hopefully you came up with the area for a flag that's 2.5 by 4.5, and you got 11.25 square feet. And then the 3.5 and the 4 3/4, you got 16 5/8. Hopefully that's the answer you got. If you didn't, or if you are pretty far off, please contact your teacher, and then we can kind of set up a plan to meet with you so that we can make sure that you understand how to multiply mixed numbers by mixed numbers. All right. Well, good job today. You only have to do your student book, page 248, for tomorrow. If you need and you want to do more things, there's always our Unit 6 online resources and our April Number Corner online resources as well. Again, if you have any problems with any part of this lesson, please contact your teacher and set up a time to meet with them so that everything can go smoothly, because we're looking at, like I said, our unit exam coming up in about 3 or 4 days. So we want to make sure this is all set in stone so that when you take the exam, we're not going to have any problems. If there's no other questions and you feel pretty good about this, congratulations and enjoy math.